Hello, friends, and welcome back to Malicious Compliance Stories. How is it that nearly 9 out of 10 Karens are single mothers? I'm not surprised they're single when they have attitudes like this. Entertaining read, OP. But before we begin, best way to support our channel is to leave comments, like, and subscribe with the turned-on bell so you don't miss the new video every single day. Here we go. I'm a single mom, so I get to run an illegal Airbnb. Hubby and I lived in this apartment complex from 2016 to 2019. Until 2018, the apartment next to our neighbor, Tish, a single mother, was rented by a Dominican couple who, apart from the Coliseum they erected in their living room every weekend for televised boxing matches, were very nice. So hubby and I were kind of bummed when the couple decided that they'd had enough of our complex. They came home one day to find at their doorstep a big rat the size of a cat snacking merrily on some KFC bones that had dropped from Tish's garbage can. I would also argue that the couple probably found it hard to sleep with Tish's headboard slapping against their bedroom wall all weekend long. Cue Vibez, Cartel, and Spice. We were further disappointed when we realized they were being replaced by a mother and her 2 daughters. It's not that I don't like kids. The family was quiet and timid, but it was clear they had problems, big problems. According to what Tina would tell me in casual conversations in the laundry room, she had once sat upon her parents' very high pedestal and, by her own account, had been violently shoved from that pedestal when she found herself pregnant with her first daughter. She'd tried to climb another very high pedestal and managed to stay there long enough to marry and have her second child, but the cheating dog had kicked Tina from the apex of prosperity to the pits of impoverishment once more. Heavy crap for laundry room talk. But it was hard to sympathize with Tina. The girls, unfortunately, seemed to understand all too well they were Tina's burden. The teenager, Mel, was ferrety and surly, which some would say is normal for a 15-year-old. But do 15-year-olds spank their own sisters? Not fight, spank, as a parent would. And the 8-year-old, while sweet, tore through boundaries like acrylic nails through cheap toilet paper. Tish immediately hated Tina because there was only enough room in this complex for one crap show at a time. Every time I saw Tish and Tina pass one another around the complex, the air would grow cold and the birds would flee to the west. But Tish and Jay left not long after Tina and her girls moved in. If y'all are looking for the catfight of the century, I'm so sorry, but I must disappoint you. Jay's father returned from graduate school and got primary custody of Jay. That meant Tish was no longer entitled to child support, and she couldn't afford the apartment anymore. Hubby and I sacrificed a goat to the Most High in gratitude. But then a few weeks after Tish and Jay left, hubby and I noticed strange noises coming from the apartment upstairs. It should have been empty, but we heard chairs dragging against the floor at all hours of the evening. I called our landlord and asked if anyone had moved in, but she told us no. But there's someone upstairs, I told her. She dismissed me, said there's no one up there. Then why, only a few nights after that, was the security gate to Tish's old apartment open? And why were the lights on? I called our landlord, but our landlord told me to take it easy, which was nice speak for, leave me alone, you paranoid dumb F. Well, hubby was sure some hobo was shacking up in Tish's old apartment, which was highly likely considering where we lived. Our former apartment complex rests within one of the only remaining residential nooks in a fast-growing Bacchanal city. On the street to the north is a string of touristy restaurants. On the street to the south is the sleaziest bar in 5 miles, and on the street to the right was a brothel masquerading as an Airbnb. It never once crossed my mind that the girls in 6-inch heels, batty riders, and lashes out to Wednesday walking up and down the road at 1 a.m. might be working girls. Anyway, hubby decided to go check on the apartment upstairs, and lo, the security gate and front door were both unlocked. Hubby figured Tish or our landlord must have left the doors open by accident, which allowed whoever the hell it was dragging chairs over our heads to enter the vacant apartment. I passed this knowledge on to our landlord, who assured me that she'd send a locksmith to change the locks. It was an evening after the locksmith changed the locks that hubby and I came home late to find ourselves face to face with the intruder upstairs. At the door to Tish's old apartment was Mel. With her was a man who, though young, was clearly older than Mel, picking at the security gate lock. When Mel saw us, she jumped so high she nearly took down some shingles from the roof. The young man, however, bid us a very cordial good evening. Then he finished picking the locks to the doors and entered the apartment. Yes, my dear people, Mel had broken into the apartment upstairs and set up camp. You better believe I called my landlord and told her about what we'd just seen. She was shocked. Was I sure that's who I'd seen breaking into the apartment? Mel was such a mannerly, mature young woman. It must have been someone else. I guess I wasn't just a paranoid dumb F, but a blind one as well. Anyway, a few days later, Mel and Tina started moving furniture into Tina's apartment. They didn't say anything to us when they saw us. I wondered if I was the bad guy, but hubby said no, I should call our landlord and report. Oh, don't worry about that. I told Tina that Mel could camp out there for a while. What? Well, friends, what happened was that our landlord called Tina to confront her about Mel breaking into the apartment, but then Tina told our landlord about her recent fall from grace and then lamented about the horrors of parenting a teenager all alone in a one-bedroom apartment. She cried so much that our landlord decided to make a deal. For $200 a month, Tina could rent the empty apartment for Mel under the condition that when a new tenant was found, Mel would move out. Okay, fine, I thought. If that's how you want to run your apartments, that's up to you. I'll stay out of your business next time. And that's just what I did when I came home from work one day to find an American couple dressed in bathing suits trying to open the gate to the complex. And I continued to do so the week after that when hubby saw Mel cleaning the apartment while 3 Australian ladies grilled by the complex pool. But one night when a hooker knocked on our door, I had enough. At first, I tried to give Tina and Mel the benefit of the doubt. Maybe this was actually something they'd worked out with the landlord. Maybe this was actually the landlord playing her hand at Airbnb. So I worded my texts carefully. Asked our landlord if she'd found a new tenant since we'd seen some new people in the complex. If she'd been trying out short-term renting since we noticed so many tourists roaming the complex. If she knew that there were strange people coming in and out every week. No reply. Turns out we weren't the only tenants concerned and ignored. 2 of our other neighbors had also tried to contact our landlord to tell her about the strange tourists hanging bathing suits all over the fences and ordering fair company in the apartment above us. Our landlord, however, never responded to any of us, didn't even blue tick. By the time Frat Boy started renting the apartment, hubby and I had had enough. We found a new apartment and gave notice. I didn't even make a fuss when she didn't give us our security deposit back. In my city, it's rare you get that back anyhow. But then a month later, I got a call from our old landlord. She said she'd assessed the apartment and found no damages, so she had our security deposit ready for us. I mean, money's money, and that was our money. So hubby and I set a date to meet the landlord at the old place. Our landlord was oddly chatty when we arrived. At first, we thought she was just excited because she was finally giving the complex a much-needed facelift. But then she started talking about Tina. Landlord, do you remember Tina? Hubby looks at me. I look at hubby. Of course. Landlord, well, she doesn't live here anymore. Crickets. Landlord, I evicted her. Quizzical eyebrows. Landlord, you won't believe what she was doing. Side eye, side eye. Landlord, well, she was running an Airbnb in the apartment right above you. Pikachu gasp. No. Apparently, after we left, the landlord came to assess our apartment. When she entered the complex, who did she happen to run into? A British couple in their bathing suits. They asked her if she knew where the beach was, and the landlord gave them directions in exchange for a glimpse at the Airbnb listing they'd contracted. There it was. Tish's old apartment rented out at $800 a week. Take away the $200 a month Tina had arranged to rent the apartment, that was a $3,000 profit. The landlord confronted Tina, and as Tina packed her bags under the close supervision of a police officer, Tina railed on and on about how our landlord was being so cruel to a single mother. How could a fellow woman deny Tina the right to make a living for her girls? No one was using the apartment anyway. She'd sue. She'd sue for squatters' rights. She was a single mother. So ends the Tina tale, but we have some extra credits. Our landlord realized how lucrative the Airbnb business could be, so she evicted all of the tenants and renovated the complex to open it up for short-term renting. That all came to an end when a 17-year-old boy drowned in the pool and the family sued the landlord for negligence. All's well that ends well, eh? And our next story. I took my uncle's inheritance. My grandmother was such a kind soul, she would help anyone who asked, no questions asked. It was no secret within our family that my grandmother was well off. This combination of not wanting financially and kindness had led to people taking advantage of her. No one takes advantage of her more than my uncle. My uncle was always asking for money, be it for school, rent, or a high-ticket item he wanted. My dad would put a stop to it, but after he passed, it got a lot worse. My uncle got more aggressive when it came to asking for handouts. He made her co-sign for both a new Jeep and home for him and his wife. The home in question was a massive 2,400 square foot home. By no means could they afford this home. She signed against threats to have her grandchildren cut off. Now, whenever my aunt or uncle wanted a new TV or wanted to go on vacation, they just wouldn't pay their bills and let it all fall on my grandma to pay. His kids were taught, if you want anything, don't ask me, go see grandma. As they got older, they started to treat her just as poorly. As my grandmother got older, we started to encourage her to move to a community where her close friends were. My uncle had other plans, though, by this time. His kids were getting older, so they pressured her when she was over 80 to sell her current home and get another mortgage in a city so his kids would have a free place to stay as they went to school. She bought the house my uncle instructed, which of course was a large 5-bedroom house for him to visit and his kids and her. This is when my grandmother finally stopped supporting him financially. She was miserable in that house, and as his kids started to move in, she had to do everything for them. My grandmother threatened my uncle for the first time. I'm not entirely sure what was said, but after that, he made his own mortgage payments by taking out a second mortgage. One day, my grandmother invited me for a visit. We went and had a great time catching up, and then near the end, my grandmother explained that a change was being made in her will, and my uncle was no longer getting anything she owned. She said she felt like she'd already given him his inheritance and then some. With my dad passed, it would come to me. She only gave me 2 conditions: don't tell anyone and don't give a cent to my uncle. When she did pass, and as she said everything was in my name, my uncle was calling me furious, going on and on about how that was his money and his family was counting on it to support themselves, and as my grandmother said, I didn't give in. I started to charge rent to his kids who were staying in the city. Only half of what I could, but they still acted like I was robbing them. My uncle, aunt, and his kids have been calling me a cheat and saying I stole their inheritance. He demands it anytime we meet and says they can't keep up with all their payments and I should help family first like Grandma did. I still refuse to help at all. Hey guys, thank you all for watching the video. I'll see you in the next one.